Welcome to New Zealand. My name is Paul Smith. I'm a photographer based here in New Zealand. Welcome to the YouTube channel. Hey, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do so. I'd really appreciate it. Helps me out. Today I've got a question from a guy called Stefan Goyal, who asked me some questions on my film photography of all things. As usual, film photography seems to be the main topic of conversation here. So I'm going to address those questions today. Stefan wanted to know basically how long I've been shooting film for, my reasons for getting into film, what my thoughts were on the darkroom process versus the new hybrid way of editing and managing your film once you've developed. And finally, he was interested in actually just me explaining how I go through my processing, I guess, of my images in Lightroom and you know, my philosophy behind that. So that'll be the question that we're talking about today. But as an aside, when I was doing some preparation for this episode, I was just going back and looking at some old footage. And I came across some footage that I actually used in a vlog a couple of years ago. I think the original vlog was titled Scenes from the Black Sand. Not my book, but it was Scenes from the Black Sand Black and White Symphony. And it was just a bit of a piece of footage of music. There was no actual vlog as such. And it was all in black and white. But anyway, I was looking through the footage a couple of days back, and I was just blown away by the colours and the actual colours in the video footage, and I thought, oh, it's a bit of a shame that I haven't actually featured this in its full colourful setting, because it really is quite beautiful. So that day I actually shot my old Kodak 6 camera, a medium format camera, and got some nice images, and I thought to myself, well, you know, maybe I can use this footage to demonstrate, I guess, how I put together stuff, and it shows you a little bit of my style, I guess, and thought it might be a nice backdrop to answer this question. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a look at this footage. It was taken at Kiritahi a couple of years ago in the morning there, very early in the mornings. It's always a great place to be in the mornings. There's a lot of horses there, a lot of trainers, horse trainers would take the horses to the beach to gallop up and down the beach, and it was always an interesting place to be. There's always something going on and some beautiful scenes to be had. So this particular morning I went down there with this old Kodak 6 medium format camera and a roll of T-Max 100, Kodak T-Max 100, and shot some shots and did some video footage. And like I said, this has appeared on my channel before, but I'm going to re-show it in a different light. So I'll have a look at this footage, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about Stefan's question. We'll answer Stefan's questions, and I'll take you through my process in Lightroom, how I manage images after I've developed them in Lightroom, and my philosophy and I guess my style of doing that. So without further ado, let's have a look at this video footage and the photographs from that session, and then we'll come back and answer Stefan's question and talk about some film photography. Hope you enjoyed that. See what I mean? The colours in that footage were just beautiful. So it was a nice session. Anyway, quickly answering Stefan's questions, because we've got a bit to cover in this video, so I don't want it to drag on too long. But one of Stefan's questions was, how long have I been shooting film, and my reasons for doing so. How long have I been shooting film? Probably about 7 or 8 years now. Made up my mind pretty early that I wanted to do something a bit different, and film photography, tick those boxes. I like to do things a little bit outside the square, and felt that film photography just fitted, what I was after. And also, I fell in love with a lot of the classical film photographers, of the 60s and 70s. So that's what made me get into film photography, and I'm still doing it today and still loving it. As far as my, what was the question? As far as my thoughts on hybrid versus darkroom, and my opinion on that, I don't really have an opinion on that, to be fair. I mean, I'm just I don't even like the term hybrid, because I think it's more, a case of, a modern approach to film photography. And that's a good title for this video, a modern approach to film photography. I just think it's, look, film photography is surviving because it's adapted to the modern day and to technology, and I think it's important, and I think film photography owes a lot to the fact that people are embracing it and they're using modern technology. Look, as far as the darkroom thing goes, I'd love to have a darkroom. I've talked about it time in, time out on the channel, and at the moment it just doesn't suit me. I don't have time. I don't know if I will ever have time for it. I enjoy my process with Lightroom and Photoshop. I enjoy the results I get from that. I enjoy the prints, and it's satisfying my needs. So that's kind of where I'm, I guess, sitting on that. To me, it's not a versus. It's not darkroom versus digital editing or Lightroom, whatever it might be. It's just, it is what it is, and it's surviving. Film photography is surviving because it's been amalgamated into the whole digital process. And at the end of the day, really, to be honest, at some point now, most images are going to be presented in a digital format. Not all, but most. So for me, I don't see a problem with the whole digital editing and stuff like that. I think it's great. I think it's helping film photography survive. So that's my thoughts on that. Question 3, can you outline your approach to using film, and from start to finish, and how I process that? Well, I guess my approach is, it's a good question, because I really, I haven't really thought too much how I approach it, but I guess, for me, film photography is, without going on too much, it's a pretty simple process, but it's different from digital. And what interests me is that the people that are into film photography, the people that follow me, for example, and most of them are actually follow me because I'm known as a film photographer on YouTube, and that's my audience. And I think most of the people that are following me are, they probably a little bit more discerning with what they want from photography. They're not so hung up on, color and, vibrant colors and, all of the, I guess, the bells and whistles that goes with digital photography. They're more interested in, I guess, the finer things in photography, and that's not, diminishing digital photography at all, because I love digital photography as well. But I think, I've noticed that people who follow me for my film photography are quite, taken with a different side of photography, and I guess more simplicity of photography. And I think with film photography, I guess as far as my approach, it's probably more based on and focused on just, I guess, composition and light and shade and textures and I guess tonal contrast and stuff like that, and you've got to be a little bit more on the money with film, especially black and white film, which is mainly what I shoot. There's not too many ways there's, at times it can be unforgiving, because if you don't nail it, you can end up with a pretty average looking picture. But as far as the editing process goes, I've touched about it in the past on this channel. I don't think I've actually gone through and actually explained how I approach the editing process. So today, what I thought I'd do is maybe switch over to Lightroom and the footage that you've just seen, the images that you've seen. I'm going to take you into Lightroom, show you the original scans, and just show you how I basically handle my black and white images in Lightroom, and I guess my philosophy on processing those images. It's pretty simple. There's nothing, it's almost like a case of, well, there isn't really anything to show. But I guess my main philosophy really is to try to, I guess, emulate what you would do in a darkroom, and try to stick to that set of rules. I guess I do break those rules from time to time, but what I'm trying to do is just to keep the process as simple as possible, and to try and use similar techniques as I would in a darkroom. And some people may or may not realize that there's lots of things that go on in that darkroom, behind closed doors, and it's not just a case of just turning the light on and making a print. There was a lot of manipulation went on. I like to try and let my images speak for themselves, and keep it simple. So let's get into Lightroom. I can actually just take you through a couple of those pictures that I took that day at Kiritahi Beach, and you can see how I would approach the editing process. So let's get onto the computer now, and we'll take a look. I have 9 images that I've got here. I'll have a look at all 9 of those. Quite pleased with what I got that day. You will notice, however, that a couple of the images, particularly these 2, are underexposed. Just a note on that, I was exposing using the Sunny 16 rule, which means that I was doing by eye. I had no light meter, and generally I was pretty happy with how my exposures came out. For the purpose of this video, let's just take 3 of these images, and I'll show you how I go through my process of editing on 3 of these images. So the 3 that I've selected are these 3. There's this one here, there's this image here that's underexposed, and there's this image here which has got pretty good exposure. So 2 of the 3 images are well exposed. We'll go through each of these images, and I'll just show you what I do generally. Pretty much 90% of the time that I'm editing black and white film, this is what I'll do. Film in general, trying to stay true to it, and use techniques that I would use if I was using the darkroom, or editing or printing rather in the darkroom. The first thing I'm going to do is just crop this image to 1:1, make sure it's 1:1. Obviously it's square format, so I'm cropping 1:1, and then I'm going to straighten off the horizon. One thing I don't like to see is images that have an horizon that is not level. I'll just manually bring that around a little bit more just to bring it out better. So this image is pretty well exposed. Sky's a little bit blown out. One of the things I like about this roller film that I shot that day was that I was getting beautiful detail in the sky, and if I just drop that overall exposure, you can see that there. So what we'll do is we'll just maybe underexpose the image a little bit, so we bring out that sky a bit, and then bring up the shadows a little bit more there. Drop the highlights down so we further bring that sky down, and we'll bring the overall, about the. I'm really keen on that sky because I think it really makes the image. Now, as you can see, the foreground is still a little bit underexposed here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab the linear gradient, and I'm going to just bring up that foreground a bit by placing the gradient over there, and just play around with those shadows in the foreground. Let's move that up a little bit so it takes in the horse there. I use this linear gradient a lot, and again, if I was working in the darkroom, I'd have the same tools available to me as I'm using now, and I think that's pretty good. I like that. Might just get a bit more contrast going there by just bringing down my blacks a bit, and then just just pointing the whites up a bit there, so I've got this nice contrast working. And for me, that's pretty much as I'm going to do that image. It's typical of what I do for most of these types of pictures. You know, from here, I'd probably take this into Photoshop and get rid of some of this dirt and scratches, and there's a little bit of stuff on there that I need to clean up. I do that in Photoshop. I find it's much more efficient using Photoshop. Just marks like that. But look at the beautiful detail that's in this picture. Blows me away. So that's image one. Second image, a bit more work to do on this image because it's underexposed a bit in the foreground. Sky's a little bit blown out too. So what again I do is I just bring that exposure on the image, so I've got the sky sitting there like that. I'm in two minds what I do here. I think what I will do, I'll use this new tool in Lightroom rather, which is a select sky tool, which I really like. It's very handy, saves a lot of time. It just selects the sky there, and I'll just use that to just select that sky area there and bring that down a little bit there. I'm happy with that, and then I'll go back to the main image and I'll probably bring it down a little bit more there, just a little bit more, and then bring up these shadows, the shadow area, and again, overall exposure up a little bit there, and start balancing that a bit. Bring the highlights down, not too much. I'm actually not too happy with the way that mask has actually worked. It's selected the sky, but there's this area here, the water needs to be, I think, played around a bit more. So we'll get rid of that mask altogether, and we'll just use a linear gradient instead. I think it's a bit more general, but I think it'll take the top of the image out a bit better. It'll bring that exposure down a bit. So I'm just going to place that over there, and I'm just going to drop that exposure down. Use the highlights there, once that water I want to bring down a little bit there. There we go. That's better. Go back to my main image again and just bring that up a little bit. Look at the detail in this image. Look at that. Let's bring the exposure up. But look at that. Look at the film. The way that's accentuated that. The horses there and the detail. Quite beautiful. Maybe a little bit overexposed. Bring it down a bit more. I'm going to just peak those whites up a little bit. Bring the blacks down, get some contrast, and again, that's all I'm going to do. That's all I'm going to do. That image is done as far as I'm concerned. Look at that. That's why I love film. You can't get that look with anything else but film. Final image. Again, we're going to crop this. Go back to 1 by 1. Bring that down a little bit there. Just clean that up a bit. This is pretty good. This image is exposed. You could pretty much take this straight into a print situation or Instagram. The image is good. I mean, I'm going to just tweak it up a little bit. Again, real simple stuff. Just I like that sky. I'm really, look at the sky there. I want to really show that out there. That information is in that negative, and I think it's a waste not to show it. I've brought that exposure of the image down, and now I'm going to bring up the foreground with another lineal gradient. So bring that up, and I'm just going to use the shadows. I'm just going to bring the shadows up a little bit there, or maybe just the overall exposure on that, just so I've got some nice contrast going there. Bring that up a little bit more. I'd like to just do some dodging and burning on these horses, because I think they're in picture obviously, but just something to just bring the eye to that a little bit more. I'm going to use a radial gradient. I'm just going to put that around there, and I'm just going to increase the shadows there, bring the shadows out a little bit more, exposure, and then I'm going to back it off by hitting it with some clarity. The shadows a bit more. I just want to give that a little something, just to, it's almost just putting some contrast into that area, so it just draws the eye to it. That's nicely on the, those horses kind of nicely positioned on that third there, which is really quite nice. And to me, that's the focal point of the image. So that's finished as well. It's as simple as that. The whole 3 photos are taking about 10 minutes. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to show you how to present this image in a for Instagram or something like that. A lot of people ask me, how do I get that print look, like on white paper, and it's pretty simple. So I'll show you how I do that. I have a template set up here in Photoshop. It's just a 500 by 500 square piece of white, and I've also got my my watermark here. I don't like to put my watermark on the image itself. I like to keep it off the image. One thing I don't like to see, and a lot of photographers do it, is watermarks on pictures. I don't see the point, and to me it more often than not detracts from the final image. So go into Lightroom here, and we're going to edit this and choose Edit in Photoshop, Adobe Photoshop. Keep all of our Lightroom adjustments, so bring that through to Photoshop. We're going to select all, Control A, and copy, Control C, and then we Control V, paste that onto my white background. I'm going to resize this image now, so we've got a nice, sits nicely inside the canvas, I guess, inside the piece of paper. Image edit. We're going to transform that. Transform and scale, and I'm going to give it a decent size border there. I just love the way that square format comes up on Instagram, and I think by putting it on a white background, you really just makes the image pop, makes it look professional, and yeah, really like it. So I've just resized that, nice border, and then I'm just going to move my watermark neatly up underneath there, same as if I was going to print that. And there we are. That's that image now is I can save that as JPEG and post that up onto Instagram or Facebook or whatever your social media platforms are. That's how I do it. So that's how I take an image, a black and white image. That's my process basically, and I hope you agree that it's pretty simple, and it keeps, I guess, with the whole harking back to that darkroom process and trying to use that as a guide to how to edit, and staying within those confines, I guess, and for me that's the way that you get nice looking black and white image with an authentic feel without getting too carried away of processing and stuff. So there we go. Hope that kind of explains and answers your question, Stefan. Thanks for your question, I appreciate it. And while we're on the subject of questions, if anybody's got questions for the future episodes, I'd welcome any participation. Send me an email or drop a comment below in this video or something. You can go to my contact page on my website. There's a link below for my website. Flick me an email on that. It's a little bit more intimate, or like I say, put a comment below, and if you've got a question, and if I feel it's valid and it can contribute to the channel, we'll use it. So it's all good. I think that's it for this episode. A bit longer than normal, but I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've enjoyed the conversation, and just a bit of an insight into what I do on the whole editing and my thoughts on film photography. So again, as usual, I've enjoyed talking about it. That's it for this episode. Thanks for joining me. If you'd like to support the channel, there's a couple ways you can do that. Firstly, buy my book, Scenes from the Black Sand. Scenes from the Black Sand is available from the website. I'll put a link up here for that. Go follow that link. That's to my website, and I've got a couple of books actually, but Scenes from the Black Sand is the main one. Go and check it out. And like I say, if you want to support the channel, the best way you can do that, Scenes from the Black Sand is available for $25 US, and that includes free shipping anywhere on the planet. Also, please go and follow me on Instagram. You can go give me a follow on my Instagram feed. I think it's Paul C. Smith. Go and check it out. I'll put a link below for my Instagram feed. Go and check out my Instagram page and give me a like. get my likes up there, get my following up there. I really appreciate it, and that helps me out big time. And it costs you nothing to do that, so it's that would be great. And I think that's it. I think that's all for this episode. I have to go now. My new book is coming out very soon. I'm waiting for the proof to come back from the printer, so that book should be out within the next week or two. Fingers crossed, and looking forward to releasing that. So stay tuned on that. I have to go, like I said. Please take care. Haere rā from New Zealand. Goodbye. See you soon.